introduction.
Thank you, thank you.
So let me share screen. Here we go. So yes, the title of my talk is Let's Radiate Forward, and it's about updates on the T.A.R.A. And so I'd like to start by describing what's going to be in this talk. And it is, first of all, it's going to be a review of the PIP for those who haven't seen or taken it yet, and then followed by a review of the T.A.R.A. for those who, again, haven't seen or taken it yet and want to know what that's about. And then I thought we'd take a closer look at two modules in the T.A.R.A. to get more of an example of the content that's within it. And then finally, a T.A.R.A. astrology update for combining the rays with astrology. So first, let's start with the PIP, which PIP stands for Personal Identity Profile. And this was a very special project of Rick Good and Michael Robbins. They both put a lot of effort into it, and it was like a special favorite pet project that they worked on for quite a few years and presented at a number of conferences. And yes, so it's an honor to be able to continue the work and keep it going and talk about it with you all today. So what is the PIP? And its purpose is promoting understanding of the seven rays, which is its ultimate purpose. Like how can we spread the seven rays and promote and get people to understand them more? And on a more grounded level, it's to do that is how can people find out their ray charts? Because it's subjective for a ray chart. Unlike astrology, where you can just go to a computer and get your astrology placements, for a ray chart, you have to meditate on the placements and figure them out yourself. So basically, but there's still tools that we can use to help us find out our ray charts. And the result is that starting about 1984, Rick Good and Michael Robbins teamed up and created a questionnaire. And it's also, I like to say that it was there's a certain amount of a group effort involved in it too, where others contributed to the PIP effort. Like, for example, Kathy Manker did statistical analysis of the questions in the PIP to determine which questions were best or valid to actually include in the test. And then my input came in later when creating a PC version of it that we'll get to in a second. So anyway, starting in 1984, there was the PIP, which at first time it was a physically mailed test. You would take it, you'd take a test, and you'd mail it in, and they'd score it, and then they'd send you back the results. But of course, that was a little inefficient, so it's much better to get your results immediately. And that later produced a website version of the PIP where you could get your results immediately. But the website was kind of hard to maintain, and it was had a few, keeping the website running and avoiding hackers and things like that. So the website is no more. And so where I came in was to create a PC, a program version of it that people could run on their own systems and get their own results on their own system. And yes, and so it started out where there's just called the PIP, and then there was the PIP2, which had modified questions like statistically adjusted. And then there was finally the PIP3, which is where we're at now. And the PIP3 has 141 statements and a couple other modules in it. So anyway, the PIP3 can be taken right now, if you like, at this address on astrolog.org/Morya/pip3.htm. And yes, so you can take it then, and it's actually useful to, if you haven't taken it in a while, to take it again if you haven't lately, because again, it's useful to see how your answers change over time, and that can give you insights into like how your rays are changing over time. So anyway, let's take a look at the PIP3 website as it currently stands. And that is right here. So here's what the website looks like. And it just has an introduction here. It has a website. It has a link that you can just run of a program. And you can download it, virus check it if you don't trust trust the download, but make sure that it's working well. We have Spanish and Vietnamese versions, and then there's like a user's guide here for it. The PC PIP3 that's made available here it only runs on Windows at this time. So if you don't have a Windows computer, you'll need to find a PC or run it in emulation. There's some links here that talks about how to do emulation, and there's some instructions on.
Are you looking at a website page?
Yes, I'm looking at a
We
website
are.
page. You are
We
not
are.
looking at the website page.
We're
Did I
looking at
do?
your first slide.
Let me, you're looking at my first slide. Did I screw up let me stop sharing and let me share my screen and see if I do this. Now are you seeing it? And then as a question, have you been seeing did you see this slide?
That's the one we've been seeing the whole time.
Yes. Okay. So you were seeing the PowerPoint. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't frozen on the first slide. But yes,
Nope.
so you saw this here, and now I can tab here because I think I shared PowerPoint window instead of instead of my screen. So yes, to show the website, here's the website. So here's the browser page, which I meant to show.
Good.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and you can see that the browser page here has links to the program for Windows, Spanish, and Vietnamese. It has a user's guide and links for how to run it if you don't have a Windows PC, and how to like manipulate the PIP window. And it tells about the parts in the PIP and commands and things like that, and so on. And we'll get to some of the things in here, and then an extension for Excel that we'll get to in just a little minute. And that is the page here, as well as there's a donation page on 7ra.org/donate if you're inspired to, and some instructional videos on interpreting your PIP results. So let's take a look at, so when you actually get up here and download and run the PIP, what does it look like? It looks like this. Here's the example of the PIP window. So when you download it and launch it, you get this here, and it has some introductory information. And so like what you do here is some demographic information. So you can type in your full name here. I can type in Walter Pullen and Seattle, Washington, and so on. And then when you're done with all the demographic questions, here I'll jump straight to part 2. The PIP, we get to the actual statements of the PIP. And then it's like, here, I am a skillful, so the first question that's presented to you is, I am a skillful abstract thinker, one who naturally finds abstract patterns of philosophical, mathematical, theoretical, or systemic relations far more intriguing than the discovery and application of practical, concrete, artistic, or even scientific knowledge, even if such specific knowledge is inherently fascinating or immediately useful. A bit of a mouthful, but it's an important consideration, and it's asking you how true that is, ranging from definitely true to definitely false. So for me, I'll say definitely true now. And then also it asks, how did this question apply to me in the past, formerly, like in previous years? And I'll say that that's like a 2. And then like another question is, the second question in the PIP is, if I really love someone, I'll go to the ends of the earth to show them how I feel. That's obviously a Ray 6 inspired PIP question, and I can say that like, oh, that's like a 2, and then in the past that was like a 3, and then and so on, and it goes through all 141 statements that get looked at. And then after you go through all 141 statements, there's another part in the PIP here, which is the highest aspirations. And highest aspirations are other things other than questions that can help us, one, really understand the arrays in which they're and what they might be. So here, for these highest aspirations, you rank them in order. And again, for you now, which aspiration above most applies. So if I say like aspiration number 8, I aspire to shatter chains, liberating people from all forms of bondage and oppression. And then you can select another one, is I aspire to a wise and intuitive, deep and complete understanding of life so that I can teach and illumine others. And then you go through there and you can see here, it's aspirations that you've already ranked. And so you rank all 14 aspirations, and then you do that for formerly as well. And that's another insight to there. And then the final part of the PIP test is traits to transform, part 4. And in occultism, these traits are sometimes called glamours and illusions. And there are ways that like supposed like negative qualities or challenges that one's faced with. And finally, the PIP asks you to rank or at least select the top 5 of these 28 traits to transform. So I could say too much skepticism is number 1, or number 19, over eagerness for compromise, peace at any price is number 2, and so on. And then finally, when you've answered all these, then your results are displayed. And so if I go back to the web page here, I have Michael Robbins's PIP results. And then once you're done with it, it will generate a web page and just automatically display it in your browser for you. And that will contain your results and show all your answers and results. So here's an example of what this page looks like, where I go here and here's all the demographic questions here. And it asks you things like about, your estimates or of your various rays, whether monadic, soul, personality, and vehicles. And like how long have you studied the ancient wisdom, questions like that. And those are Michael's answers. And then finally, you get the example of your PIP results, and the PIP results appear as a bar graph. And those show the 7 rays that are different, different heights based on how you answered the various statements. And you can see that for Michael, ray 6 is most prominent, followed closely by ray 2, and rays 5 and 7 are the most are the least qualified. And there's quite a few graphs in here and data, because it's not just the data for it is how you answered it now. You can also see how you answered it for the formerly, when it was asking you to answer the questions for how the rays or how you aligned with each statement formerly. And that gives a different set of bar graphs where you can say formerly Michael was ray 6 followed by ray 4, and with ray 2 in third place. And then you can combine them and like average them together and finally compare them and see how they've changed. And you can see that for Michael, ray 2 has been increasing, while some other rays like ray 4 has been decreasing. And then finally, you get not just compare them side by side, but you can get the deltas or differences between them that can really show that 2 and 5 were most increasing, 4 and 7 were the most decreased between the now and formerly results. And then finally, there's, in addition to just the 7 rays by themselves, there are also ray types. And ray types mean that you can distinguish between like 2 different types of each ray, which is sort of more of an outer externalized manifestation of a ray and more of an internalized manifestation for it. So for example, for ray 1, there's the strong and steadfastness type of the first ray versus the more destructive type of the first ray. And then for ray 2, there's like the pure love type of ray 2 versus the wisdom type of ray 2. So it's like, is it the Christ aspect of ray 2 or the more Buddha aspect of ray 2 that's being emphasized? And so each of the rays is divided into a ray 1, like a ray A and a ray B type. And the PIP distinguishes between them, which can allow one to further subdivide or understand the distinction between them. So you can see that Michael has a bit more of the ray 2B Buddha wisdom type of ray 2 when he took that. And you can see some of them are quite different. Like you can see ray 5A is strongly pronounced for the analytical thinking, but the ray 5B, the more mechanical type of ray 5, is almost non-existent. So that's a way to distinguish that. And similarly, look at ray 3, which is very has a broad change as well between the abstract thinking type of ray 3 versus like the manipulating money or business type of ray 3, which is ray 3B. So we can see these other graphs where it can again do the same, like combine the two or compare them side by side and the differences between them and so on. And then finally, there are ray lines, which basically unifies all the hard line rays and the soft line rays. Again, being able to look at them now, and you can see for Michael, the soft line rays are more emphasized. And here's all of these differences here. And then finally, there's the aspirations, or finally, after the PIP questions are done, then there's the next section for the highest aspirations section that was done. And that shows these here all 14 aspirations as well as the rays that they correspond with. And you can see that for Michael, the rays, the aspirations associated with ray 2 have been emphasized, which is like I aspire to a deep, intuitive, loving understanding of people, and I aspire to a wise, deep, and complete understanding of life so I can teach and illumine others. Those are some of the strongest aspirations that can be seen. And that's a way to get another insight into the rays that are most strong in your system. And then finally, for the traits to transform, there's like several for each ray that of the traits to transform that align with each ray. And you can see that for Michael here, like at least formally, there was the ray 4 traits were most aligned with the ones to be transformed, like traits like trait number 4, too many highs and lows, or trait number 4, or trait number 19, over eagerness for compromise. And then finally, there's a little bit about response patterns, telling you how many definitely truths versus definitely falses you had, because even that can be insightful, where if one always answers like definitely true or definitely false, that indicates a more impassioned way of taking the test, which suggests more like ray 6 or ray 1 in your system, even regardless of how you answer the question or what the questions themselves are. And so, yes, so all that is an example of the PIP and what the results file look like. And then there's a section here that can be emailed to us. I mean, the PIP will try to pop up your email program if you have one to have the results that can be mailed to us. But if not, it can be done manually. And there's a donation link again, and so on. So that is the example of the PIP in example of PIP results. And however, there is back to the website. Where is that? Back to the website here. Is that you can see your results, but it's be nice if like they looked a little bit better. And that is, there's a special extension for the PIP that can create it with better graphics. And that is, there's this Excel link, and you can load this Excel file, and I'll show the Excel file here. Here is the Excel file. And if you download that, you can take your PIP results, like this text file that's generated with your results, import it into Excel, and then you get your results, but you get better looking bar graphs. So for example, here's Michael's results again, but the bar graphs are now vertical instead of horizontal. So these bar graphs probably look a little bit better. And Michael really liked the vertical graphs because they really show that reaching up, showing that energy. And so this is basically exactly the same information we were looking at before, but all the bar graphs, but we're in Excel now instead of in a web page, and all the bar graphs are now vertical. So we can see them here and see here and so on. And yes, so scrolling through here, seeing all those results, and yes. Okay. So yes, that's an example of the PIP and how it can be taken and what the results look like. And yes, so the PIP is basically relatively easy to do. You can take it relatively quickly. You just run the program and you get your results, and whichever the rays are highest, those are clues. They're nothing's guaranteed, but they're clues as to what your ray makeup might be. However, there is the issue that there's no differentiation into soul or personality or your vehicles. So it's up to you to make that differentiation on yourself, just based on whatever numbers appear highest. And so that leads us into the T.A.R.A, which is, oh yeah, and here's a slide about the PIP3 in its 3 languages that we have so far: English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, with example outputs. But yes, so that leads us to the T.A.R.A, where that is the alternate test, and T.A.R.A stands for Transpersonal Astrorayological Analysis, where the T.A.R.A has many more modules. The PIP had 3 modules, but the T.A.R.A has 14, 2 of which are the same, because T.A.R.A also has a highest aspirations and traits to transform. But the biggest difference with the T.A.R.A is that it includes differentiation. In other words, it has modules that focus specifically on the soul or on the personality or on the vehicles, even the monad. Plus, it has more what I would call generic modules that aren't specifically focused on a particular part of the ray chart, but are like the PIP, focused just generally and can give insights that way. So you can see that in this list of modules, there's detecting the soul rays and subrays, ray of personal self, i.e. personality. There's dimensions of the mind, i.e. mental vehicle, assessment of the emotional ray, and detecting the etheric physical ray. And even also there's triadal rays and aspects, and even search for the monadic ray for more abstract considerations. And then there's a few other generic things like color preferences, ray symbolism, fears and aversions, traits to transform, that are all about, that are, generic modules. And specifically, I'd like to focus today on modules Ray and 9 to take a closer look at them in a little bit, because they're modules that we haven't looked at in previous years, and they're more associated with Ray glamours. So yes, an important part about the T.A.R.A is that it's not just an extended PIP. It's not just a test, but it's an interactive meditation process. And many of these modules have meditations that go with them that can be done before and or after the questions or considerations done in it. And beyond that, it's also, the modules are independent of each other relatively, so you can focus on just certain modules if you want to. So in that sense, the T.A.R.A is somewhat like a reference book, and like one of the many reference books that Michael Robbins put together. And so for that reason, the whole T.A.R.A test exists currently at this form as like a book or as a Word document. And so this, we tried to have the T.A.R.A. online as a website, but when that didn't work, we currently have it as a book document. And I will insert in the chat that document here, and so that you can all see it here. So I will put that in their file, your computer, and the current latest version of it is right here. T.A.R.A. test book. And there we go. Okay. So yes, so that's what the T.A.R.A. is. It's basically a book, and we'll take a look at it in just a second. And yes, so actually let's take a look at it now. And let's see here. So yes, here's an example of the Word document, open T.A.R.A. Transpersonal Astrological Analysis. It has a important introduction section and talking about like the importance of meditation when taking the T.A.R.A. And also the frequently asked questions about the rays and the vehicles. Can any ray be in any vehicle? Like which rays are most common for vehicles, and so on. And then it has all the modules, including like introductions or meditations and sections for them. Oh yes, and yes, another important consideration is that T.A.R.A. is called transpersonal astro-rayological analysis. Astro means astrology, and if you'll notice, none of those 14 modules deal with astrology. So a more recent edition, which we'll get to later, is about the astro or astrology part of that. But first, let's take a look at a couple modules in the T.A.R.A. T.A.R.A. module number 8 is traits to transform, which is one of the same modules that also exists in the PIP, but in the T.A.R.A. it's extended. For example, the PIP only presents to you 28 traits to transform, but the T.A.R.A. has over 4 times as many traits that's presented in 7 categories, one for each ray. And yes, again, many of these traits to transform, they're based on glamours, and many of the traits to transform presented here, especially the ones that are in the T.A.R.A. that are divided into the ray categories, are based on DK's list of ray glamours in Glamour World Problem. So let's take a look at module 8. And that's here, traits to transform. And yes, associated with each of the 7 fundamental qualities or rays are a number of traits which we should transform as we grow towards our full potential. A great deal of useful energy is locked up in every negative trait. When the trait is transformed into a positive trait, the trapped energy is liberated and contributes to an individual's growth and development. So here it tells you to, again, like the PIP, rate statements from definitely true to definitely false. And like, for example, here, starting out is the trait of, I need to transform my uncontrolled enthusiasms. That's a ray 6 trait to transform. And also in the ray 6 category, I need to transform my gullibility, my excessive eagerness to trust and believe. And then there's quite a few ray 6 traits to transform. And then we get into actually quite a few, but into a next series where it's like, I need to transform my tendency to waste energy through overactivity and restlessness. That's a ray 3 trait to transform. Or I need to transform my tendency to be constantly busy. So that's an example of traits to transform and what that looks like in the T.A.R.A. environment. And then another module to look at is called fears and aversions. And one thing is to realize is that fears affect everyone because they include not just fears, but aversions and even like non-emotional preferences. Alice Bailey in the unfinished autobiography said it succinctly. She wrote, If people tell me that they are never afraid, I know that they are liars. Fear is nothing to be ashamed of, and very frequently, the more highly developed you are and the more sensitive you are, the more fears to which you may react. And fear is one of the Ray 2 glamours, talking about the glamour of fear based on undue sensitivity. So sensitivity is good, but sensitivity taken to an extreme, or sensitivity to wrong things that can lead one astray, that then it becomes a problem. So for more about fear and how to overcome it is this quote that says, "Fear, as the mental body develops and the modifications of the thinking principle become more rapid, fear and that which it produces begins to demonstrate. This is not the instinctual fear of animals, which is based upon the response of the physical body to physical plane conditions, but the fears of the mind, based upon memory, imagination, and anticipation, and the power to visualize. These are difficult to overcome and can only be dominated by the ego or soul itself." So let's take a look at the fear module, the fears and aversions module. So yes, discomfort, distrust, distaste, aversion, repulsion, fear, dread, terror. The nature and quality of our energy system determines in large measure our attractions and repulsions. Just as love in its various grades is universal and omnipresent, so to a great extent is fear, by whatever name we call it. And so yes, these fears might be called aversion to, distaste for, discomfort when confronted with. And the word fear is one that itself is aversive, and individuals may hesitate to attribute such a quality to themselves. And yet it has been said that the greatest of all the obstructive forces upon the planet is fear, and surely few are those who are entirely immune. So yes, then what this module does is it presents 7 groups of fears, and which again, we are able to look at and rate as how much they apply to us. So, and of course, with this section and with the T.A.R.A. in general, it says, when doing this section of the T.A.R.A., it is especially important to be completely honest. Few are those who like to admit to fear or any variety of negativity, but if denial and wishful thinking are allowed to take over, one will only succeed in deceiving himself, and the Ray assessment will be useless. So yes, so for example, there's like fear of or strong aversion to being alone and isolated, fear of or strong aversion to being abandoned. These are Ray 2 fears. And then there's other fears in other rays, fear of or strong aversion to chaos and disorder, fear of or strong aversion to uncontrolled conditions. These are Ray 7 fears, and so on. So yeah, more about the concept of Ray glamours. I wanted to mention that they can be applied to other areas, and we can look at and see certain archetypes that can make us be aware of Ray glamours. Like one that occurred to me was about the 7 dwarfs, and that each dwarf relates to one of their 7 rays and can be a warning against the glamours of that ray. So like Sneezy, who goes achoo, that's kind of like that forceful projecting spittle or negativity in the world. That's like a warning against the problems of Ray 1. And then Bashful, the dwarf, is about shyness, codependence, not standing up for oneself. That's like the Ray 2 glamour, and so on. Sleepy, being too busy or too still. That's Ray 3. Grumpy, being always annoyed or finding things others, that's Ray 4. So you can say that each one of the 7 dwarfs is one of the 7 Ray glamours. And then for another example, we can see glamours in a more humorous light by seeing back in high school, where there's different people struggling in different ways. You can say that there's a high school negative Ray archetypes, where you have like the Ray 1, the being bullies, Ray 2 being shy wallflowers, Ray 3 being liars or con men, Ray 4 being drama kings or queens, Ray 5 being the geeky nerds, Ray 6 being the religious zealots. impassioned along one line or another, and ray 7 being snobs. So that's a humorous approach to see the ray glamours and how we can recognize them so that we can overcome them. So yes, I mentioned about that there's the, for the astro part of transpersonal astrorayological analysis, that we want to have the astrology part. And that is something that Michael always wanted to include in the T.A.R.A, is to have astrology modules. And instead of adding modules, I've added rayological features to the program Astrolog. So Astrolog is kind of a T.A.R.A module in itself, that it can give you ray insights based on your astrology if you run the Astrolog program. And Astrolog has a number of esoteric astrology features, such as it can color the wheel chart based on color planets based on signs or houses, based on the rays. There's a script here that will allow you to display display the astrology chart based on the 7 rays. So this is an example here where I can take a wheel chart and turn on each ray. See, these are the 3 ray. These are the 3 ray 1 signs. These are the 3 ray 2 signs, and you can display them all so that, for example, Aries is displayed with kind of a purplish color mixed. That's the since Aries is ray 1 and 7, it's red for ray 1 mixed with violet for ray 7 to create that color. So that's one of the Astrolog features. Another is that it offers ray chart clues. And this is to the soul, personality, mental, astral, and vehicles based on astrological influences only, which of course that won't tell you your rays, but it can give you insights based on just the astrological influences in your chart of which areas are being highlighted. And this is based on some information from BL, who devised a means of determining which planets are most aligned with soul, personality, mental, astral, and physical. And then Astrolog sums it up and creates so let me show an example here. Yes, so up here in the corner, in the upper right corner, you have the rankings of rays based on the assessment of what's most likely based on the astrological influences only for soul, personality, mental, astral, and physical. And then there's also some interpretation here based on just like mundane mantrams, again from inspired by BL's work, that put in the Astrolog program for like an analysis of the labors of Hercules, mundane and esoteric mantrams, and as well as from the blue books here. So at any rate, there is you can have the ray chart clues and the esoteric interpretation of them, and you can have the ray colorings, like from this previous slide. Here's Michael's chart colored in there. But the question is like, how can we synthesize them? And so a new addition to Astrolog just in the past year is to take this ray chart information and put it on the wheel chart. So how does that work? That looks like, here's my chart here. And so it's quite simple, really. And sometimes it's nice to essentialize things and make them as simple as possible, where I can go in here into graphics settings and say for the wheel corners, I'm just going to say here. So yes, so for the analysis of my chart, it's right here. It says that it's most primarily ray 4. Or if I want to display the top 2 rays, I can do this. And it's like for my chart is ray 4 with subray of 6. or I can display all 5 rays and get here soul ray 3, based on just astrological influences only, personality ray 6, mental vehicle ray 5, astral ray 6, physical ray 3. And again, astrology won't only say that that's your rays, or I mean, your rays cannot be determined by astrology, but astrology can imply hints. Like for me, for what astrolog says about this based on the techniques is, yes, I do believe I have a ray 5 mental, a ray 6 astral, and a ray 3 physical, so it's right about those 3. However, I still see that I have a ray 3 personality and a ray 2 soul instead of a ray 3 soul and a ray 6 personality. But still, this chart gives me something to think about. And it's nice to be able to, again, synthesize those ray chart clues with this colored wheel chart and have them both together. So yes, with that, that concludes this presentation on the PIP and T.A.R.A. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions yet? Oh, that's a thumbs up. Louise asks, how is T.A.R.A. submitted for feedback?
Oh, what was that?
How is T.A.R.A. submitted for feedback?
Well, since the T.A.R.A. exists as a Word document, it's basically email feedback to us or to me if you have any insights or ideas about how to improve it. Is that the PIP, you take it and you get your results automatically generated in like a computer web page. For the T.A.R.A., you have to grade it yourself. And at the end of each section is is like a little section where you can jot down and count up the number of like yeses or definitely trues in each area. And so basically, yes, you grade the T.A.R.A. yourself because it's a Word document.
And really the key to that is the meditations that go along with it. And you work the meditation, and then it helps you to understand it better, at least in my understanding, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why the T.A.R.A. Test is a document as opposed to an automatic program, because it's hard to have that have a program like lead you through a meditation. I mean, it's possible, but we haven't done it at this time. So that's why it's the T.A.R.A. is more personally oriented, that you do it and meditate on it yourself and meditate and produce the results yourself, while the PIP is more like done for you. You just enter the result, enter your assessment of each statement, and your results get generated.
Nisa asks, are there any ray implication RT progressed chart? I'm not sure what the RT is.
With respect to,
oh,
maybe?
Okay, could be, yeah.
Well, yes, you can look at rays, and one of the astrolog features is to assess the rays, to rank the rays of any chart. And that can be done for a progress chart to give yourself like, oh, I'm entering a ray 5 period here, or oh, I'm entering a ray 6 period here based on transits or progressions. And so yes, you can, because you can take any chart and give it a ray ranking and see the power of each ray, so to speak, based on astrological influences only. That can give you a way to assess the ray energy of any time, including for progressed or transit times.
What I would like to do now, because we're into the open questions and discussion, so any of the rayology team, I'd like you to come forward now and let's open it up to questions from the audience. I'll do my best to watch for hands and questions depending on how quickly they fly. Thank you, Walter. You got a lot of good thank yous for your work. And I know I've appreciated Walter from way before I even knew him, because when I started getting into astrology in the 80s or so, I found Astrolog, and it was free downloadable software at that time. He hadn't integrated all of the esoteric stuff in it yet, but he did that as part of his thesis for the Morya Federation, and boy, are we glad. And okay, I'm too dumb to use most of that. The features that are in there are amazing. You can look at the 3D chart, but it's just amazing what he's put in there for us also. And on top of all that, in his spare time, the PIP and the T.A.R.A, and he's got a full-time job and a family, and yada yada, same as most of us, right? We often say we've been there, done that. No hands yet. Come on, you guys.
This is for anything today, anything yesterday. Just, it doesn't have to be specific to some presentation, a particular presentation, but just anything at all.
Like your presentation on the egoic lotus, and we didn't have time for questions on that. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something, Eva?
Yeah, even just questions about one's rays and how to find a ray, and how, and if there are questions about the similarities between rays, anything ray pertaining. We're all...
Martha's hand. You're muted, Biel.
I think
Go ahead, Martha.
Thanks, Biel. I want to start with great appreciation for how orderly you all were in the planning of this conference. My question, and I'll try to direct it more specifically, but it is to any presenter who wants to. Is there any one of you who is feeling, oh, I needed to say this? I wanted to say this, because part of the contribution was you kept such an orderly attention. You didn't, we've learned not to run over and tried to edit our questions so that they're relevant. But is there anything really sticking in any of the presenters that just say, oh, I did want them to hear this? I would so appreciate any response that you might have to that.
Well, for me, I'm always amazed at how much I learned preparing for these presentations. It's a kind of false authority. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but you come into some minimal authority through preparation, right? And it's almost every time it just feels fantastic to now have at least the beginning of a handle on what you're talking about, and certainly that was true for me this time.
Okay, we have a question from Anne Veronica, and I'd have to dig deep to find my lists. She says 7A and 7B, what are the differences? Anybody have their little list handy of the A's and B's for each of the rays?
Yes, I have those present, and if I can, well, it was in the PIP results show those, the 7A's and 7B's. So
it's in esoteric psychology, isn't it, Eva? Isn't that where the list of the A's and B's is?
Yeah, 7A is the highly organized type of ray 7. 7B is the transformative, renovative type of ray 7. So for example, type 7A is often correlated with the personality of the 7th ray. The love of correct appearance, pattern, routine, and arrangement is pronounced. the power of Saturn is prominent, while for ray 7b, the 7b type is more likely to be correlated with the ray 7 soul than with the 7th ray personality. Renovation and reorganization are to seen of greater importance than the maintenance of strict order. The power of Uranus, a largely 7th ray planet, is prominent. That's what the PIP results say when describing the difference between ray 7a and ray 7b.
Now, Michael had told us that in fact there probably are A, B, and C. There probably is a third sub as well. And although he hasn't given us his thoughts on all of them to be with a C, I would venture to say that for the 7th ray, C would be ritualization. All the rituals the 7th ray likes. That would be the C part.
I think you're right on, Eva. Yeah.
As a 7th ray personality, I can't stand rituals, but I'm a 7th ray personality. So see, so it has to be one of those.
Yeah, one of the other ones, right? Yeah. Walter, can you do that for all of the rays, please?
Yeah, just before that, just continuing about that, DK says somewhere about that the rays will always express themselves as Trinity. So it comes in further evolution of humanity when we are able to refine our vehicles the way that we can respond to those.
Mm-hmm.
One way of maybe doing some detective work on that would be to look at the Ray Lord names of the different rays, and because there would be some correlation.
Yeah, I think all three areas would be covered there, but we would have to figure out, you know, unless we're told which is A, B, and C, we would have to figure out which fits into the.
Which is C. Yeah, yeah, we are given A and B for all 7 of them, but right.
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know if this was Michael's thing or if, in fact, it's in the books. I've been doing this for so long, I just don't know any references right now.
Yeah, I have it all written down, but I don't have it handy right now.
I think some more
Okay.
than others, like, you know, the love Christ side and the wisdom Buddha side, I think, you know, is pretty clear. But some of the others, you know, like the 3rd ray orientation to either money or to abstract thinking, for instance, you know, is that really, I've always wondered about that division because you see huge disparity in people's test results on the 3rd ray, for instance, you know, same with the 5th ray.
Okay, I do know that in the Dyna books, he specifically talks to certain disciples about you're on, you know, the Ray 2 love aspect of it, and another one, the Ray 2 wisdom aspect of it. But you may be right, Eva. It may have been in a Tapestry of the Gods where Michael gave us the breakdown, and then of course it's in the PIP, and all those results were already there. So. I mean, from the very beginning, from PIP 1, you could see the A and B side of it.
Right.
All right, we have, let me see. Ishtar says, I wonder if we could use rayology color as a meditation seed, could help strengthen a weak area in ourselves.
Well, we are supposed to learn about working with the Deivic world, and that comes in the advanced part of our work when we have learned to really be stable and we are not misusing these. But then the one question is about how do you call that, the shade of the color, or how do you call that, that particular, how would you say that in English, particular
Shade.
tone, shade?
Or tone. Shade technically means that those darker parts of the color in tint represents the lighter parts of the color. So if you add white to a color, it's a tint. If you add any dark color to the color, it's a shade. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and he said about the in the color green, we have to be very careful with this what type of green we are then visualizing.
One of the things that we used to do in all our classes, and we learned that again from Michael, is that if you're weak in a certain area and you want to strengthen that area, we say you cultivate that quality. So if you cultivate a quality, it's always in the forefront of your consciousness. And as we know, energy follows the way we think. So cultivation and gifting is the other thing. So you gift something that you're good at and that comes easy to you, and you cultivate something that you want more of.
Yeah, Buddha was saying about that, how about the cultivation when we are battling, for instance, in our thoughts or our emotions, that we resist that first. Whenever it rises, we resist, and then we place upon that the counter thought or counter sense feeling, and then little by little it becomes natural. Then we don't have to fight anymore.
But you know, color is a good thing to ascertain rays. What color were you drawn to? What color were you drawn to? Oh gosh, how do I stop this? I'm sorry. Is there a color that is more prevalent in your life? Do you like your room in a specific color? Do you like your room in a specific color? Do you not like to wear certain colors? That often tells you something about the rays, you know?
Yeah, and one of the modules in the T.A.R.A is titled Color Preferences, and it's all about color, where you just select the colors that you're most drawn to and rank them. And that's another way that once you look at your results for that module, it can give insight into which rays are present in your system.
But you know, fourth ray people, it's really difficult because we love all the colors.
Do you know that when I first got married, long time ago, I decorated my home in blues and purples. I did not know anything about rays at the time. And it was like a really rich purple and lovely shades of blue. I went to all different colors blues. I had them on my walls. I had it in my carpeting. I had it in my curtains. So there you go, ray 2 and ray 7.
You have to send photos for us. I would love to see that.
From 56, 58 years ago or something. Right.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful.
In Italy, they just finished a bike race that's really famous called the Giro d'Italia. And the jersey you wear if you're winning is bright pink. And Italy has it's a 6-ray personality or 6-ray soul. I always mix 6 and 4. What is it?
6-ray soul, 4-ray personality.
Yeah, 6-ray soul. So here you have, you know, the soul of Italy racing along because he's winning the Giro d'Italia. I always love it. So it really works its way in. I mean, can you imagine America having a pink jersey for a men's race? Not going to happen. You know, it's not going to happen. It'd be like gunmetal or something. Anyway.
The question end up from Maria Christina.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to find a tabulation here, but there was a question from Maria Christina. Her hand is up. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, please, Maria Christina.
Well, first of all, kudos for beautiful group work to see all of you, as always, that I feel this conference has always fostered is everyone working so beautifully together. And my question actually has to do with the egoic lotus. I'm wondering if, Francis, you've considered the egoic lotus of humanity itself as given by the Tibetan in Education in a New Age, page 56, where he ascribes different, not just attributes, but actually how, be it hierarchy is found, for example, on the 6th petal of humanity.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm not aware of that passage. Well, if it's an entity, it has a causal body. And humanity is also a fourth kingdom entity. So it's just something I haven't thought about, but it's really an interesting idea that, certainly if it has a causal body, it has an egoic lotus. And there's some of those petals have unfolded and many have not. So, DK seems to me, anyway, I mean, share with me if you have another opinion, all of you, that he tends to rate humanity as a whole at a higher level. The being who is humanity. For instance, he talks about humanity is ready to take the first initiation. And and then you read about the petals and you realize that's a 7th petal event. And when you read about the 5th and 6th petals and the incredible consciousness, you can't, there's no way I can imagine that the average or the midpoint of human consciousness is ready to take the first initiation. So I think he really is talking about that being who is humanity, as opposed to like a certain number of human beings. Now, I don't know that that's true. It's always puzzled me. And maybe there's a critical point, where like 11%, I hear that number a lot, that, when 11% of the people do something, it sways the direction that, in this case, the direction that humanity is going. So, but even that's a huge number.
Very fascinating, because he has the masses of men in the first petal, the intellectuals in the path of discipleship on the 2nd petal, and spiritual man in the path initiation of the 3rd petal of the first tier.
Yeah, see, that's a completely different way of describing it. I'd have to look at it in context, because that's a completely different way of looking at it.
That's the only thing I've ever found is 2 or 3 pages on that, but thank you. It's okay. It's fascinating, I think. Thank you.
I'd like to just add a little bit to that, and that is that DK refers to humanity as the world disciple. He doesn't say the world aspirant. He says the world disciple. So maybe he does consider us a little bit more advanced than we think we are, or that when we look around. That's number one. Number two, as far as the petals are concerned, from everything I understand, although they are meant to open up sequentially, they don't necessarily open up. Let's say a little bit gets ready to open up on the lowest tier, and a little bit gets ready to open up on the next tier. So, what you might be reading has to do with generalization, and we don't know what, in fact, which tier is opening up on the second. I'm sorry, which petal might be unfurling or getting ready to be opened up on the 2nd tier, and 1 or 2 might be opened up on the 1st tier. Am I making sense here?
Well, that's true. That's exactly right. That you can have a 2nd tier petal open when you haven't even finished your work on the 1st tier. If you're of a certain type, like if you're a real natural loving disposition, your 5th petal can get stimulated before your 4th petal is worked on at all, so they can jump out of order that way,
Yeah, and they are based upon this our race structure. So that when we think about the first rate types, it is the sacrificial petals, which are more easier to be opened, and for love types, second rate types, it is the love petals. But in principle, it is that the 5th petal is the Leo petal, and it is where we are showing the really integrated personality. We become the king in the world, on the top of the mountain, and we own everything. And we could think like Trump is a very good example of that fifth ray petal, which is in full power. And then basically we can say that when we talk about the discipleship and really walking towards the kingdom of God, it's all of those sacrificial petals starts to be affected, because we turn towards the service and we tend then to sacrifice our personality, desires and demands. And something about, what did we talk before that? I wanted to add something. What did you say, Maria Christina? There was a question of about the how much, how many, and where the humanity stands. So T.A.R.A. also calls humanity as aspirant. He calls in different way descriptions about the aspirant, the disciple, and so forth. And it is about the critical mass and what is that mystery behind that, what is the critical mass. But it is meaning that the humanity is one entity, and like we can have problems in other vehicles, but then we have been reaching some requirements the way that we have been passing already the portal. So we are still talking in relationship to humanity, the initiations of the threshold. They are like in real sense, the first and second degree is still like the preparations to real initiation, which is the third. So in that sense, the humanity is preparing that. And because of the knowledge petals in humanity's case, we are gaining a huge speed, understanding, and the whole communication in the different parts of the humanity is, because of the internet, it is open, and education system around the world. So that is indicating of that humanity is quickly reaching that point what T.A.R.A. talks.
A lot of fourth petal work being done all over the world, I think, fourth and fifth. But, you know, average humanity is on the second and third petal. I mean, you know, people who have no spiritual orientation, you know, you can be very intelligent, very successful, and just have your third petal open, you know. It's not, you know. And yet, as you said, the fifth petal also, it's like, it's a dangerous place because the soul is coming in, but it stimulates this personality level to its highest extent. So you get people like Trump, who, you know, are out of control at a personality level. And that's not a third petal kind of place. That comes through this unconscious soul stimulation that happens with the fifth petal. And so, you know, DK says that you can have this temporary, there's a lot of dictators who have their fifth petal open, you know, you have this temporary aggrandizement, but that they usually get over it, you know, in the sixth petal work and through Scorpio.
And it is, yeah, and it is very important if we think what happens there, that because of these concentrating energies, we have to reach that kind of mental strength in order to stand then the first degree, when the energies of the soul is pouring into the lower vehicles and lower personality. And that's we understand when we think about if our mind would not be trained to be very selfish first, it will lose the possibility of gaining any initiation, because there is not developed this concentrated magnetic point what we have to develop in the mind. So they are very needed steps.
Many years ago, I would say about 20 years ago, in one of our classes, there was a girl who had, she was a seer, she could see on levels that most of us cannot see. And somebody in the class, when we were all graduating, said to her, can you draw our egoic lotus? So she had to draw everybody's egoic lotus. And she was able to show which ones were fully opened, which ones were partially opened, which ones were ready to be opened. And I would say that most of this is an esoteric group, this is a soul-centered group, most of them had something on every tier, on all three tiers. So it's not that uncommon to have the sacrifice petals somewhat touched and open, and the middle petals, some of them had more of the lowest petals all opened up, and some of them had more of the second tier petals all opened up. But all of us had something on every tier.
Right.
That doesn't surprise me. You know, DK talks about 4 stages of unfolding, and that during the first stage, which is called organization, you're just learning about what you're going to be doing on that petal. You haven't yet made any real gains there. And I could see where, you know, somebody on the 4th petal, for instance, would definitely have some organizing work going on with the 7th petal, for instance, you know, because that's going to be a goal in the not too distant future. And so they're already getting some sense of that arena, you could say, that area of work that they're going to be, you know, involved in. And then you have that vitalization, which is DK describes as the touch of the soul, you know, and that's when things start really coming alive with that pedal. But there's still no mastery. It means you're feeling it. You know, this is the classroom that you belong in, you know, but it's not until unfoldment which is, you know, that's when you're starting to really get it. You know, it's a later stage and you're really gaining awareness of the agenda, you know, but opening the last stage won't happen until you're way past that pedal. You know, like for instance, he says that when you take the first initiation, the 5th pedal opens, but you're actually taking it on the 7th pedal. So, you know, and the 6th acts as a bridge between the two. So it's, you know, it would have been great to explore it more deeply, you know, than I was able to, because it was just simply, you know, this pedal, then this pedal, and this pedal. But like you say, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing is that for every pedal that's vitalized and begins, unfolding is what he calls it. It really influences the other pedals. They don't work in a vacuum. So if you, for instance, when you open the love pedal of the first tier, which we've all done, that in itself stimulates the love pedal in the middle tier. It gets it going. And that would look like organization, that first stage where I've got personal love down now. So, you know, what's next in that area, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, I am just thinking about those correspondences and thinking about the flower. If we just look, for instance, the rose, how the rose is opening. So it is opening on the outer sphere, but then it is like the whole flower is opening, and yet you can see that the particular petal is opening, or which is in the row, but you can see how it is this living organism. I think that it is the similar ways then on the mental plane as well.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Yes,
Sorry.
PL.
I just want to say we have 2 hands up and we have about 11 comments that, I mean, we've had this really great discussion and
Go for
everything,
it.
but
Go for it. Call on
okay.
it.
Morya, Christina, go ahead. Morya, Christina.
There's been so much wonderful conversation. I'm still back on the on the egoic lotus of humanity and wondering, because the way it's described, the first petal is the path of purification, the second petal, the path of discipleship, and the third, the path of initiation. And I'm wondering if this...
That's the tiers.
No, that's under the second tier has, well, it has more information than this, has the intellectuals, world aspirants, and the hierarchy. And the third tier has participation in the plan, directed will of all disciples, precipitation. And it occurs to me that perhaps we move through the egoic petals of humanity as group. That when the group, as we know, moves forward as group, and again, it's not, you're right, it's not 1, 2, 3 petals necessarily opening in order, because, for example, the second tier, second petal has world aspirants on it and loving understanding.
Well,
and yet the first tier has illumination, spiritual man, path of initiation.
What page is in what book? I'm going to have to pull this up. You got me.
56, Education of in the New Age.
56? Is that what you said?
Yes. And as we're talking, it just really occurred to me that maybe this movement is as groups, because as groups we coalesce and also unfold within humanity.
Well, any soul work is group work, so
yes.
I think the answer to that question has to be yes.
Certainly, yeah.
May I say something? Oh, just a quick thing. Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay. So I think it's important also to remember that with the same word humanity, it's intending many things. So it's just like when we read the planetary logos of the earth is non-sacred, then we read is going to be sacred, and or Pluto is non-sacred and then is sacred. So for humanity is 3 creative hierarchies. Humanity is both the human kingdom, but it's also, we have to think that the first 2 initiations are taken on the astral body, if I remember well. So when DK says that we are the human disciple, we can say that we can think that on the astral plane, humanity, or whatever we can call that group endeavor, is going to be a disciple on the astral plane. But it doesn't mean that on the physical plane we are already demonstrating that. But on the astral plane, hierarchy knows that we are already a pre-disciple, or whatever stage of disciple we are. We, what are we? So it depends what stage, what plane we are considering.
Mm-hmm. We always have to look the connection, what we are talking about.
Okay, Peter, did you have something to say?
Yes, I did. Just 2 points. One to Walter. In terms of the PIP and the T.A.R.A, I always felt that grades should be divided into 3 because of the 3 aspects, and I was never, in terms of dealing with databases and in terms of questionnaires, most questionnaires always have leading questions. The writing of questions is extremely important and very, very subtle. And I think 3 types would probably help a little bit. Particularly the first ray, the silent type, and 7th, the wake up and let's get going and improve the world, etc. type, which doesn't seem to be included. But the second point I'd make in terms of dealing with the causal body and the lotus, we've been around here for several hundred years. DK mentions people in history. who may have been disciples and initiates. And of course, they all have been developing their causal bodies and the petals, but they're completely unaware as disciples or initiates of how many petals there is. This is our school is a school of esoteric studies. It's not the be all and end all. It's just one department among many on the planet. And so not everyone is going to interpret things in terms of the causal body of petals, though, as Eva pointed out, they can be seen. They can be seen, and you can see, you get a sense if you actually focus. I think any of us who focus on the causal body as we walk by people on the road or during our daily lives, we can sense what petals are active, what chakras are active, what their general vibration is. We can sense radiations, etc., all the rest.
We need to take a walk together, Peter, sometime.
Huh?
We need to take a walk together and you can point out what you see.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I've been doing it for years. Yeah.
I don't see those things. I don't sense those things. So
I only sense I sense a vibration and I sense structure. I do not sense colors, just vibration and structure.
Interesting.
There was a question, I was looking at the chat about the law of repulse. Do you mind if I address that?
Go ahead. I haven't had time to get to any of the chats, and there's a bunch of them.
I'm looking for it. But basically, as I recall, here it is. When it comes to the law of repulse, could one assume it also repulses things or traits which were at one time beneficial and purposeful, but whose time has concluded and no longer serves to make way for the next stage? Absolutely. You repulse what doesn't work. What you know in your heart of heart doesn't work. You know, some people might be attracted to wanting to eat something as simple as wanting to have meat. And later on in life, they say, I want to be vegetarian. So at one time they were attracted to meat. Now they want to be vegetarian because they think it's going to raise their level of vibration or frequency. It could be anything that you were attracted to at the beginning. It doesn't serve anymore and you reject it.
In fact, I think that's how it usually works for everyone. They move from one attraction to the next and repulse the previous, you know.
Okay, Tuya, it's time now for the closing for tonight. We haven't gotten to so many of the comments, but if we start going through them now, we'll be here forever. And a couple of you there in Europe are probably really thinking about now.
We can save these for tomorrow because it seems that the group is always very quiet in the beginning. So let us start with these comments if they are relevant, and then we get on going again. Anyway, thank you, dear friends. Thank you so much for this day. It has been really beautiful. I am going to now close the video and we move into the little thing for tonight. Let me just share the screen when I find again the buttons. Okay. I'm sorry, my mouse is a little bit hurt because I have dropped it so many times that it is wounded mouse. Okay. Let us go within. Imagine that you are in your sacred workroom in one of the full moon meditations, we are visiting the workroom of Master T.A.R.A. You can imagine your workroom. And imagine that you are reading a huge old book from the archives of the masters. And reflect your connection with your group. Reflect, what is the group? Who are your co-workers? Who are those who are already on the other side? What is the quality of the group? Now you have studied somewhat about the race, how you would be describing if you think about the quality of the group. What ray or race are describing, illustrating the group that you belong to. What about when you follow that quality? Where does it lead you? How far actually you can sense this quality taking you? Certainly it goes beyond your country's boundaries. We can realize that it is not only national, it goes beyond. Send your blessings, your cooperation and support to all of the members. On this side, on the other side. And then realize the vibration of the Master, Master T.A.R.A. You may reflect the first moment when you were in touch with Master T.A.R.A. in this life. I think that everyone will remember how it happened. What about if you again follow that vibration? Do you think that the contact has been made already in other life or lives? It makes us all very humble when we are in touch this kind of huge, amazing teaching. There is this word naga, which is related to serpent, and like in many other words, we have two meanings. The other meaning is the serpent of wisdom. It is said that the Nagas have been suffered, and this is amazing, for millions of years in order to protect the teaching. And somehow that comes very often to my mind when I'm thinking these masters that we are working with more closely. Certainly always with Master D.K. That's why let us give our deepest gratitude to Master D.K. And certainly Alice Bailey, who was the conduit of this huge work in the physical plane. Look upon that book again, and suddenly you open the page which says Rules of the Road. The road is trodden in the full light of day, thrown upon the path by those who know and lead. Naught can then be hidden, and at each turn upon that road, a man must face himself. Upon the road the hidden stands, revealed. Each sees and knows the villainy of each. And yet there is, with that great revelation, no turning back, no spurning of each other, no shakiness upon the road. The road goes forward into day. Upon that road, one wanders not alone. There is no rush, no hurry, and yet there is no time to lose. Each pilgrim, knowing this, presses his footsteps forward and finds himself surrounded by his fellow men. Some move ahead, he follows after. Some move behind, he sets the pace. He travels not alone. 3 things the pilgrim must avoid: the wearing of a hood, a veil which hides his face from others, the carrying of a water pot which only holds enough for his own wants, the shouldering of a staff without a crook to hold. Each pilgrim on the road must carry with him what he needs: a pot of fire to warm his fellow men, a lamp to cast its rays upon his heart, and show his fellow men the nature of his hidden life, a purse of gold which he scatters not upon the road, but shares with others, a sealed vase wherein he carries all his aspiration to cast before the feet of him who waits to greet him at the gate, a sealed vase. The pilgrim, as he walks upon the road, must have the open ear, the giving hand, the silent tongue, the chastened heart, the golden voice, the rapid foot, and the open eye which sees the light. He knows he travels not alone. And by these, we close the book. We give our gratitude for this day. All presenters, all participants, all the devas, all great ones. And we meet again tomorrow.